Okay, well, now we've only got a few minutes, so we'll just kind of introduce something and pick it up from there. But going back to where we left off 2 weeks ago, and by the way, if you happen to be seeing this on YouTube, you're going to see just a very short segment here because of some scheduling things in the live class. But this is kind of where we left off with looking at whether it makes logical sense to believe in a creator. And I've given you just a little bit of some handouts there. It's not all the notes. I just now got my new key to the copy room, so I couldn't run off everything I wanted to this week. They changed the locks, I guess, when they saw me coming, not unusual. But once again, I got it. My parents moved to New Zealand once, but I found them. So, okay. So we'll get you more later on, but this may be just a few useful things as we go forward. So just to kind of refresh you and set up for next week, we were looking at kind of what I said, the first major question, the existence of all matter and energy in the universe. And by the way, I appreciate very much some things that my friend and brother Daniel raised last week. Daniel, we haven't seen each other face to face since then, but I hope that we can get together because I want to learn some things from you about that, and I want to hear your perspective on some things that I've been looking at, and also have one very interesting reference that from Roger Penrose that I'll share with you. But anyway, I appreciate all the things that were said on this. So we're comparing kind of some of the theories about that, and for just this first question, not life, we're getting into the biology very soon, which is to me where it gets very interesting. Okay, but just the existence of all the matter and energy in the universe. So we really have at present three ideas. One, that is a superior entity created it. Second is that it exists without creation and without any superior entity or God, etc., no creator, but we don't have any really prevailing theory of how that would happen. So you get the idea. We're not sure what happened, but it wasn't God. And as I said, well, that doesn't explain anything, but at least it's an honest proposition, so I'll take that. That's worthy of consideration. Or that it came into existence spontaneously, or you might say created itself. Okay, that third one is part of a kind of a loosely defined collection of things, and I'll give you more in the notes on this, called M theory. All right, we won't get too much into that right now because we'll pick that back up. You'll see that again. So what I told you, though, is that on that third one, Stephen Hawking did not originate this idea, but was a proponent of it. That he said, because there is a law such as gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing. And such spontaneous creation, that's why we're here. He said, you don't have to, he's kind of implying what a lot of people have said, we're not superstitious anymore. You don't have to invent the idea of some God who needed, he called it light the blue touch paper. That's British. It's what we would call, light the fuse on the dynamite, etc. He said, you don't have to have a God. It created itself. All right. As I kind of mentioned, Professor Hawking, he may not have always been right, but he was never in doubt about the idea that he was right. And some of his collaborators and co-workers, including his most famous collaborator, very much disagreed with him on this. So as we start looking at these, we looked at this, and I kind of went through a little bit of why are we supposed to believe this ultimate unfalsifiable idea? But we'll come back to that later on. So for this, I kind of then showed you what the creation hypothesis is, and it is a seriously proposed hypothesis. This is not some whimsical mythology God figure, but a very seriously proposed hypothesis that many people have died for and have given their testimony under oath and under the ultimate penalty, etc. All right. And comparing those, here's where we were. This is strictly review. Okay, for the idea of creation, can you test that with an experiment? No, you cannot. So it is not science by definition. The idea that it happened without a creator, can you test that? Well, there's not really a prevailing theory to test, but even if there were, no, you can't test it. Unless you know how to set up an experiment to create a universe. The idea that it created itself, is that testable? Well, certainly not. So none of these are science. None of them. We looked at the idea, can you observe it? No, you certainly cannot. Is it compatible with what we see? Well, the hypothesis that a creator did it, you might not like that hypothesis, but it is perfectly compatible with what we see, okay? That doesn't say it has to be true, but it's perfectly compatible. This one, well, there's not really a theory, so you can't evaluate whether it's compatible with known phenomena or not. I will maintain that the idea that it created itself is not compatible with known phenomena and known laws of physics. But here's really on that first question what you have to say. You cannot disprove, much less prove, any of these things. So any one of those is going to involve confirmation, I think, from the things that we're coming to next, to go back and answer the first question, because every one of those ideas involves something beyond human understanding. We have to look at which one makes the most sense. No creation, but no theory. That doesn't have any explanatory power. I mean, it could be true, but if there's no theory, it can't explain anything. Does that make sense? The idea that it created itself, I'm going to tell you, because it is definitely not compatible with what we know, then it has a hard time explaining anything. I found among many things I was reading this past 2 weeks, an interesting interview with Roger Penrose. This was a highly respected Nobel Prize winner in mathematics. He was Stephen Hawking's colleague, co-investigator, etc. And he won the Nobel Prize finally, and Hawking might have won it with him if he had still been alive. I don't know. Penrose is not a believer, but there was an interesting thing on the idea that the universe created itself and some of the other things that go with that. I found an interesting radio interview, and there was a video clip of it in progress. What Professor Penrose said about this was, he goes, the M theory, he said, it's actually not even a very good theory. He said, first of all, there's probably 500 different little versions of it, but nobody has an idea exactly what the theory is. He said it's completely unfalsifiable, completely without any support, any observation, any evidence. And he said, so it's really doesn't even make a good theory. Well, I mean, opinion and a vote, that doesn't make it wrong or whatever, but it does tell you, is this a widely accepted thing that makes sense? Well, not to the guy who won the Nobel Prize for his work explaining black holes. Anyway, so there's lots of interesting things there to look at. So when you come to this one on your little scorecard that you might keep, I think there's one of those that makes a little more sense than the other, or maybe a whole lot more sense than the other. But we'll want to go on to the second question, that is the precise structure and organization of the universe, which I think begins to tell us a little more. And then after that, the third question, the initial appearance of life on this planet. And finally, the structure and precision and diversity of life that we now see. So I hope that you will be kind enough to look at those things. Now that I have been given the, I started to say keys to the kingdom, but I don't mean to be sacrilegious whatsoever, even my bizarre humor. The keys to the copy room. Okay, we'll settle for that. So next week I will have you an increment of some of the notes that we've looked at so far. You're very, very kind to put up with me, and I'm very grateful for it, and very, very grateful for who you are. I hope you have a good week ahead. God always blesses.
We love you too, man.
Thanks.
Hey, sorry that we had back to back, but there were a couple of chairs left last night at the wall that C. Ray Walden